Welcome back.
Hello. Welcome back
Hello.
to
Welcome.
Girls Gone
Girls
Spooky.
Gone Spooky. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Amy. And today
And
I'm excited.
yeah, I'm so excited. Has anyone read Dan Brown?
Yeah,
Basically, today we are Dan Brown.
yeah. Take a shot every time I mention angels and demons today.
I would be
And you won't
loaded.
remember the episode.
No, won't remember the episode at all, which
Yep.
maybe is how the Illuminati wants it,
True.
you know?
You never know.
Um, Before we dive into our topic, which, well, is several topics, but all kind of connected to one church, we'll just
Yes.
say,
Mm-hmm.
I watched a related movie for my Halloween activity, which was The Exorcist Believer, which was kind of like the sequel to the Exorcist movie. And without like giving too much away, it was very fun and like entertaining. They kept a lot of the themes obviously and the pacing from the original movie. Have you seen the original?
No.
No.
Definitely not.
No. Certainly not.
Certainly not.
It's I think you actually would be okay. It's
Yeah.
hokey now. At the
Right.
time, I think it was terrifying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like I think any adult who was horrified by the original Exorcist would die of fright watching this one because they just
Mm-hmm.
modernize everything and it all looks so realistic.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing is like they kept a lot of the themes and the pacing, but then they updated a lot of like the religion and like made it a little bit more inclusive and modernized. So, and then also the involvement of like, I mean, this is a bit of a spoiler, I guess, from the original Exorcist, but like once she's possessed, Linda Blair like doesn't leave the bed. Like she doesn't leave the house really. So it's like, but this is more mobile. They're
Yeah.
like
They're
in
out
the
and about.
hospital and at houses and like, yeah, out and about for sure. So it's really creepy. It's really, really
Yeah.
creepy. But it was really interesting because so much of, I mean, the whole thing is about exorcism and like demons, which is very directly connected to the Catholic Church.
Yes.
And my topic for today is really specifically focused on the Vatican and all of the secrets and conspiracies surrounding it, which I got into, of course, from someone on TikTok. Her name is Aja, AJA, but her handle is Ajuni, AJUNIE _ BEE, if anyone's interested. And she has so much stuff, including something about, you guessed it, the Da Vinci Code. There's something new that came out about maybe the Mona Lisa or some other Da Vinci work that like almost affirmed some of the conspiracies from Da Vinci Code. So it's, I don't know, really interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't go down the rabbit hole on that one because I was like, okay, stay on topic.
Yeah.
Because there's so much stuff for the Vatican, but
Yeah.
I just thought that was really interesting. But before I pass it to you, Amy, and then I'll get into my Vatican stuff later, I wanted to share just stuff I found on like modern day exorcism. Because obviously the original Exorcist movie was made, I think, in the 70s. And it's like exclusively the Catholic Church. Like the priest comes and there's that like eerie shot of him outside the house with his briefcase and that whole thing. And this one is just a lot more like the process is still the same in terms of like they have to, priests or laymen have to like make a case to the Catholic Church, like to the archdiocese, that an exorcist needs to be performed. And so I was actually really curious, like, has that process changed at all? According to the new movie, no, but you know, that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And it seems like it actually is the same, which is interesting. But the rite of exorcism is extremely different now than it used to be. Obviously, the church history, this is all from NPR, not NPR, but MPR.
Okay.
So,
What does
you
that
know,
stand
like
for?
the validity of that. I don't know. I'm scrolling. Oh, Minnesota
Minnesota?
Public Radio.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
um, Interesting. But anyway, so obviously the church is like strewn with its history is strewn with like miracles and trying to validate miracles. And in the age of social media, I was reading this article from NPR by a woman named Tracy Mumford, and she's talking about like the fact that in today, like this day and age with social media and everything travels across the internet like that, that, you know, someone seeing the Virgin Mary appear in their toast is just like they're a dime a dozen and they spread like wildfire, and people can, you know, modify things with Photoshop and now AI images, and it's all
Hmm.
just like very um very yeah, just hard to tell what's real and what's fake. But in this article, she talks a lot about a book written by a man named John Thavis called The Vatican Prophecies, and the subtitle is Investigating Supernatural Signs, Apparitions, and Miracles in the Modern Age. And so it's talking all about how like the Vatican responds to this stuff nowadays, and for the most part, they don't want to hear about it. Um, and if it is real, like if it's a serious thing, there has to be this like official investigation, and they're almost like guaranteed to dismiss things if they've already gotten amplified on social media, because it's just assumed that they're not like legitimate.
Yeah.
So there's a whole section on relics, which I think I've always thought about relics as being like ancient, like not like decor, but like
Yeah.
kind of decor, like
Uh-huh.
from, you know, the time of Jesus or sometime since then in the
Yeah.
very long history of the Catholic Church since its
Hmm.
like beginning.
Yeah.
But centuries ago, it was common practice for every Catholic church to have a relic in its altar, meaning a piece of a saint's body or at least a drop of saint's blood. So literally they would like chop these saints bodies after they
And
died. There were
um,
like exhumed. So in the book, Thavis recounts a story of a priest who exhumed a saint's body and wore her finger around his neck for the rest of his life. Like I mean,
ugh.
it's similar to how Catholics view Jesus, like that they take the body of Christ when they
Hmm.
take the Eucharist. It's just like fascinating how like gory and
Yeah.
morbid some of these practices are, and they line up real nicely with some of the Vatican. Some of them are actually just like facts, like historical
Hmm.
facts, including
Yeah.
putting a dead pope physically on trial, like yelling at a dead body as if he could respond, like
Yeah.
really, really,
Why?
like just like ghoulish, like
Hmm.
really gross.
Yeah.
Um, so I just wanted to flag that. But then the thing that I thought was like the most interesting was the piece on exorcism, which I kind of loved who he sort of like brought in to talk about it. And so um, there's a quote from him. He says, "We have a Hollywood," this is Davis who wrote the book, "We have a
Hmm.
Hollywood understanding of it," Davis said, "of the Catholic exorcism rite. In reality," he said, "most exorcisms are calm events. They're settled with prayer and putting a crucifix near the body of the person thought to be possessed." In 1999, the Vatican came out with a new exorcism ritual, which further toned down the old rite. It asked priests to go calmly about their business, to, quote, almost politely ask that the devil leave, Davis said. But not
Interesting.
everyone, of course, was in agreement with that. And there was some exorcist that was quoted, like someone who performs exorcisms, quoted to say that the new rite was in vernacular language. And they go on to say, look, the devil understands Latin, not English, which is such an interesting
Yeah.
thought.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Weird.
when you think about it, I mean, and just how bizarre that concept is, like politely asking the devil to
Hmm.
leave, as if,
Hey, please.
yeah, as if he's going to respond to that. I say
Hmm.
he, like he's just some guy, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like the whole thing just seems like possession in and of itself seems violent and
Yeah.
unnatural. So
Hmm.
the depossession of someone seems like it
Yeah.
would be similarly
Yeah.
violent and unnatural. So I
Not
don't know.
gonna.
It was just really interesting to read that it's like, there are exorcists all over the world. Like, it doesn't work.
Hey. Yeah. Yeah.
This like
Interesting.
nice, calm way doesn't
Mhm.
work. So
Yeah. It's not
anyway,
going to be
that's my
gentle.
little no, definitely not. That's my
Mhm.
little quick intro. But the other thing I wanted to say really quickly before I pass it to you, the other show that we finished watching was a Netflix original that was done by, I think his name's Mike Flanagan. I'm
Mhm.
always like Ryan Flanagan, Kyle
Yeah.
Flanagan. What's his name?
Uh-huh.
It's Mike.
Yeah.
I think it's Mike, who did Haunting of Hill House, Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, Midnight Club. He did Fall of the House of Usher, which is
Mhm.
based on all the Edgar Allan Poe poems.
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
it was so good. Like,
Okay.
don't walk, run to go watch that. It is
Okay.
spooky,
Yeah.
Amy, but you know what's coming half the time. So you're kind of like, okay. And I'll give you a spoiler that I think will
Okay.
help you get through it because it's so well done. It was just so entertaining and fun.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
highly
Ooh.
recommend to any of our
Mhm.
spooky listeners.
Yes.
Um,
I
but
will
yeah,
check.
okay, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, I saw they keep advertising that show to me and I keep thinking about
Mhm.
watching it, but I haven't done it yet. So I need to.
It's so good. It's so good.
Okay. Cool. Well, so my topics today kind of are um supporting actors for Olivia's stories. um, and they're also
Recording.
yeah, refreshers because we have talked about these, but like way long ago. And
Yeah.
if we forgot, you probably forgot too. So
Yeah.
listen again.
We definitely
Yeah.
forgot. So,
Yeah. So the first one is the Anunnaki, which are I was originally introduced to this topic on an Ancient Aliens episode, of course.
hell yeah.
So you can probably already gauge what this is based on that, but it is compelling in certain ways. It's interesting. So, okay. Um, the Anunnaki are the ancient gods of Mesopotamia. They were described as having wings, they wore horned caps, and they possessed the ability to control all of humanity. So, the Sumerians, which was the civilization that lived in this region at the time, they revered the Anunnaki as heavenly beings who shaped the destiny of their society. But were they more than deities? Some people claim that the Anunnaki were aliens from another planet. And, even more shocking, some use the actual ancient Sumerian texts to back up this idea. So, here's what we know. Um, so, the Sumerians, like I said, they lived in Mesopotamia. This is in present day Iraq and Iran. And they were living between 4500 and 1750 BC. And despite being one of our most ancient civilizations, they were very impressive technologically. Um, they invented the plow, for example. They developed one of our oldest writing systems called cuneiform. Um, and let's see, I lost the specifics, but I think it was they tracked the trajectory or the path of Jupiter like 1500 years before other astronomers in Europe were able to do the same thing.
Jesus.
They started using trigonometry about 1,000 years before the Greeks did. So they were very advanced. Um,
Yeah.
and because they did create this cuneiform writing, they left behind a ton of written evidence of their lives, I guess, including the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is one of the oldest known written stories in human history. And if one thing is clear from all of these texts that have been translated so far, it's that the Anunnaki gods were highly, highly revered. So, to worship them, they would dress statues of the Anunnaki in clothing, give them food, and like carry them around to ceremonies and like through daily life. And let me see. So back to these cuneiform texts. The person that really rocketed them into the ancient alien sphere is somebody named Zechariah Sitchin. And in 1976, he wrote a book called The 12th Planet, which shared his translations of 14 of these tablets that were written in cuneiform. And his book claimed that the Sumerians believed that the Anunnaki came from a far off planet called Nibiru. This sounds like I'm like summarizing a Star Trek episode or something. Like, what are you talking about? But apparently, I mean, according to him, this is all in the text. Like, he was interviewed by the New York Times before he died in 2010, and he said, "This is
the
in
Bible
the text."
the Bible sounds pretty fucking insane if you're just reading it out of context.
Yeah, that's true. So,
or with context, arguably.
yeah, that is also true. So, I don't know, believe what you want to believe, but he claims that this is direct translation, and there aren't necessarily all that many people that can read cuneiform, as far as I know. So, who's gonna like say he's wrong, I guess.
He's gonna argue.
Yeah, exactly. So, according to Sitchin, this planet, Nibiru, has an elongated orbit of 3,600 years. So, at one point, this planet passed at the closest point to Earth around 500,000 years ago. And at that time, they made contact with people here. I think 500,000 is wrong. That sounds wrong to me. But that's what it says. So, because that wouldn't be. Anyway, don't
that would
question
be too
it.
far back, right?
Yeah, that would be too far back. But
yeah, it'd be like dinosaur time. Oh shit!
So,
well, you know what?
It's a typo.
Yeah, we're just gonna trust them. I mean, it actually probably is
Yeah.
typo. Probably 5,000 years.
Yeah,
right.
Something like that. So I don't know. Anyway, let's just edit that part out.
I think we have to keep it in for transparency. We're gonna get wrecked otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. I'll own up.
We're
to
assuming
it.
was a typo, guys.
Yeah.
If not, we just debunked it real quick.
Yep. Oh well. Okay. So whenever they were here, they made contact with the people here. And okay, wait. I think this is making sense now. Sorry. This is all over the place. I think that what they were saying is the Anunnaki at one point came in contact with Earth itself, not necessarily humans, 500,000 years ago. And then when they were orbiting and getting close to us every 3,600 years or whatever it was, at one of those times, they encountered people in Sumeria. That makes sense. Okay, that was a journey.
We got there together. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and it didn't take 3,600 years, which I'm grateful for.
We did it, and we didn't just debunk everything that I'm talking about.
Which was like a really careless way for that guy to really ruin his theory and his expertise in cuneiform.
Yeah, exactly.
So 500,000 years ago, Sumerians were like, I'll stop you there.
Already wrong. Yep. So, okay. Whenever it was, the Anunnaki found gold on our planet. And they needed the gold to uphold their society or help them succeed. So they decided that they wanted to help early humans evolve to be miners of the gold for them. So very weird sort of relationship, but they wrote apparently in these tablets that this is how they learned to use tools, and this is how they were able to advance in their mathematical knowledge and all of these things, that the Anunnaki helped them evolve in this
Yeah.
journey.
Which, I mean, if you think about like, oh, well, we're going to make you mine for gold. I mean, that actually
Mhm.
does fit kind of our modern day fears about
Mhm.
alien contact, right?
Yeah.
That they would basically make us a slave race,
Mhm.
um, just humans in general.
Yeah.
There's also like something I've come across too in looking through some of this stuff is like there's a like heavily racist component to that as well. That like the Sumerians weren't capable of doing those
Yeah.
things on their own, so of course they had to have alien
Right.
interference to help.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
ugh.
Yeah. Because
Anyway,
the
could
people
be
who believe these theories would be the same people who think that aliens built the pyramids and
pyramids. Yeah,
built the structures in Mexico and all of that.
Mexico. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I don't, and it's so much
Which I
more
mean,
fun to believe that we figured out how to do that, in my opinion.
sure, yeah. Or I mean,
So,
the other thing that I'm thinking is like humans are typically good under pressure,
mhm,
like as a group, as a species, not like individuals necessarily, but it also makes me think like if there was pressure from the assuming the Anunnaki were real, there's
mhm.
pressure from them to like hit a quota of some kind that
Yeah.
made it have just like lit a fire because if you look at like Neanderthals or like early sapiens,
Mhm.
they only discovered fire and created tools out of necessity. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh, just for fun, I'm going to
Yeah.
create an abacus. Like,
Yeah.
no, it was like it became necessary to
Mhm.
survive, to be able to count and do math and like work with specific kinds of tools. So it, in a way, it actually would make sense that it still was the Sumerians just by pressure of the
Mhm.
Anunnaki to figure it out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So our
What was
mascot
that?
is being very noisy. He's
He's
meowing.
got something to say.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
What's up, man? Oh, bring. Well, for anyone watching and not just listening, here's his fish taco, which is his favorite toy.
Oh. How cute. It's
Well,
just a dead fish in a tortilla.
literally, with his little
Dead
crosses on
eyes.
his eyes.
That's
It's
so
very like
cute.
crinkly and shimmery, though. It's cute.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I cut you off with my theorizing.
No, I think that was good because that's kind of all there is about the Anunnaki. But
Yeah,
like people, because of, I think it's the texts that people are willing to
yeah,
believe this because they do sort of believe that it comes directly from these Sumerian texts
yeah,
as opposed to like these other concepts that they introduce on Ancient Aliens, for
yeah.
example, that you're like, where is your
Right.
evidence? And they just don't have
Yeah.
any. But if you
The
say
guy with
it,
the hair that's
yeah.
literally like
Yeah, if you say it with enough conviction,
Einstein.
some people
Yeah.
will believe you. So,
And you have to think that like this whoever this guy is who's like, "Oh yeah, I can translate cuneiform," that he can't be the only person to
yeah,
one be able to translate cuneiform and two to have looked at these tablets. Like there
right.
has to have been groups of researchers
Mhm.
working on something so like ancient and historical as that,
Right.
right? So it's like, okay, you kind of have to take that at face value. If there are multiple people saying, yes, this is what they say,
Mhm.
whether it's like a Bible kind of thing or not, we don't know how much of that is actually real. Not for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I think other people, of course, have read these texts as well. And they say it's like they wrote these things because they were living in a time when they didn't understand natural
Yeah.
phenomena like
Yeah.
flooding or famine or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah, I
Interesting.
mean, that's how the contrasting opinion
Yeah.
states what they read or how they interpret it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's the Anunnaki. And I think
Anunnaki. So
there
interesting.
is potentially in the ancient astronaut theory.
Oh
Um,
yes.
that, like, could you argue that all of our gods that we've all believed in throughout history were aliens that came to visit? Like, I think that's what ancient astronaut
Yeah.
theorists are trying to say.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's
why not?
feasible. I think like Jewish, Christian, Muslim God, I don't know. You'd think he'd be less humanoid. Like he's depicted kind of like a man, like
Yeah.
just a guy.
Hmm.
Um, but maybe that's just to make it more accessible to people
Right.
who didn't
Hmm.
see him themselves. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept.
Hmm.
And why shouldn't they be gods then?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like it's all a
Especially,
construct anyway.
yeah, it's true. And especially if they were bringing knowledge or helping
Yeah,
us, like,
exactly.
evolve in a certain
And they
way.
were literally otherworldly. I mean,
Yes.
that is what God is,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Some
right.
otherworldly entity.
Being. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah. It is. It's interesting to ponder, and
So
like,
interesting.
I
Yeah,
I don't know how I feel. Like, I want to believe in
yeah,
aliens. I don't know how I feel about this in particular, but
yeah. Having made contact already.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Brings us back to the Grush. Was that his name? Grush guy who the
Oh.
Marine expedition or
Mhm.
whatever who
Yeah.
fell all, which
Yeah.
like just kind of died on the vine. It seemed like that whole
Yeah.
story. Like, is
Mhm.
he okay?
Yeah, what happened to him? I
I don't
don't
know.
know.
We should look that up though.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of allusion to him in my section as well because it
Okay.
just like
Cool.
there's just a lot of weird commonalities in all of this stuff and what these people say who
Mhm.
aren't necessarily connected. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
that's a little weird.
Yeah, it gives you pause. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
so I also was thinking as I was writing this and doing research, like, I think that your stuff today is so interesting, and like, who's gonna say that it's not possible, you know?
Yeah,
And my
yeah,
topics are like, I don't want to muddy the waters with how ridiculous some of these are that I'm
yeah.
talking about. Um,
You're also kind of funny, and people
yeah,
really believe them. So
yeah,
doesn't that give them power?
right,
Again, Slender Man. Like,
yeah,
doesn't that give it power and energy? I
yeah,
don't know.
true. But yeah, I
The
would.
more of this stuff that we see and talk about, the more I believe that that's true.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree. So yeah, I guess mine today are just all conspiracies, we'll say, and you
Okay.
can take
Okay.
it or leave it.
Yes.
But um, this next one is the Illuminati, which I'm excited to hear how it is related to the Vatican,
Yeah.
because in like a general historic sense, it makes sense. But I'm
Mhm.
curious about like the more mysterious part of it. Um,
Yeah.
but the Illuminati, I think most people would know what the Illuminati is, and it really has gotten away from itself, like what it really
Yeah.
was to what people think it is now. It's not
Mhm.
the same. Um, so, in a total historical sense, the term Illuminati is referring to the Bavarian Illuminati, which was a secret society that operated for only a decade from 1776 to 1785. It was founded by Adam Weishaupt, who was a German law professor who believed strongly in Enlightenment ideals, and his Illuminatenorden, I guess that's German for Illuminati, um, sought to promote these ideals among other elites. So he wanted to create this society where he could educate the members in reason, philanthropy, and other secular values, as opposed to just from religion. So you can see why the Vatican might have taken issue with a group like this,
Of course.
because it's in direct opposition to religion in a lot of ways. Um, and then here is where, like, I see kind of how it grew into what we think of it, how we think of it today. Because part of their goal was to be able to influence political decisions and like, shape society in a way. So what the conspiracy has gotten to now, I think, is that people with a lot of power are members of the Illuminati, and they're the ones that are like running our society.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that
Mhm.
interpretation? Okay. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's my sense of it.
yeah. So basically that's kind of it, and like there's a lot of weird offshoots of Illuminati, like, oh, these famous people are part of the Illuminati because they have this success, and then it's like
Yeah.
they're in dealings with the devil.
Okay.
It's all very
Yeah.
convoluted now. But one thing that came up as like a little, if you like this article, you'll like this one too, was the lizard people. And I am sure people have heard of this because it has entered public discourse in a way.
So funny.
But this is a conspiracy put forward by someone named David Icke. I think it's
Ick.
ICKE. Um,
Okay.
and he has a lot of weird theories, but he believes that members of the Illuminati are reptile people, so lizard
Of
people.
course.
And they're
Like Mark Zuckerberg.
exactly, yeah, exactly like him. So
My
he's,
CEO. It's
yeah,
great.
exactly. So he believes that there's an interdimensional race of reptilian beings called the Archons, or probably Archons, Archons, and they have hijacked the Earth and are stopping humanity from realizing its true potential. And interestingly, he claims that these are the same race as the Anunnaki. So, like, they come from the same
Oh,
galaxy or whatever, wherever they came
wow.
from.
Okay.
So, yeah, I this is like why I wanted to give that disclaimer, because
Yeah.
this is so
Swear.
not
Pretty out
real.
there.
But it's,
Well, that's what you think. Maybe this
well,
guy is really enlightened.
yeah, it's true. So, yeah, and here are the telltale signs of a lizard person. So listen up.
Oh, okay, great.
If you encounter
PSA,
someone,
you might be a
which
lizard person.
exactly. So, okay, you might be a lizard person if you have green eyes. Check. Good eyesight.
Uh-oh, Amy.
Good eyesight or hearing. Check. Having red hair. No. A sense of not belonging to the human race.
I mean,
Unexplained.
don't we all
Yeah.
feel
Yeah,
that
I think so, at least a little
way?
bit. Um,
Yeah.
Unexplained scars on the body, a love of space, and low blood pressure. Like, I have low blood pressure.
Do lizards have low? Me too, but do lizards have low blood pressure?
I think so, and that's why they're cold-blooded, right?
Oh, that would
I
make
think.
sense. Amy, you're really just missing the red hair, so that's
I'll
alarming.
dye it tonight. So I
I
can
mean,
fit the,
blonde and red are not that far off. They're both recessive.
yeah. Uh-oh.
Are you trying to tell me something?
This is a cry for help.
You like lizard tongue. That's going to be really nice in the ears of our
Yeah,
listeners.
sorry.
I'm not
Sorry,
sorry.
everyone.
I'll
I
never
I
apologize.
hate that sound, like the, oh, Olivia, no, I hate that so
Sorry.
much.
That's
It's
what makes it fun.
it's weird though, because like if a stranger is doing that, I'm like, okay, that's annoying. But like when Dave does that,
Yeah.
or if you're doing that, I like want
Yeah.
to break
It's
up
like
with you
you
guys.
can
I'm like, you can never speak to me again. end our
Don't you
friendship.
dare threaten to break up with me. You're stuck with me.
You know what I mean. This is over.
You can never speak to me again.
So dramatic, but it's like
You're shit out of luck, my friend. I'll be doing that for decades to come. Just a surge of rage.
Yeah, exactly.
In reaction to that nasty mouth sound. That's fair. That seems fair.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the lizard people. I think that was just a weird, unnecessary offshoot, just to show how the Illuminati conspiracy has evolved into something totally its own. So then the last couple quick things I have are just, which I think Olivia will talk about a little bit, the huge archives that they have at the Vatican that are mostly sealed. I think I saw like a little stat somewhere. It was like 5% maybe of what's in those archives has been made public. So a lot of people have questions, rightfully, about what might be in there and what they're trying to hide. So the first thing that I thought was interesting, some people think maybe there's evidence of the Priory of Sion in there, which is like a cult in a way, like a myth, I guess, that is featured heavily in Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. And the myth...
Take a shot, everyone.
Exactly. It basically is, so they say Jesus was married to the prostitute Mary Magdalene, and he wanted to have her lead his church after his death. And he not only was married to her, but they had children together as part of this theory. And some, including Dan Brown, believe that Mary Magdalene is portrayed to Jesus's right in the Last Supper. And they use this as part of their evidence. And I remember reading that part of the book and being like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever.
I know, me too.
And I have no problem with believing that. But
no. Did I ever tell you that I got, like, when I got the book from the library, I got some weird, like, picture book version?
Yeah.
It was huge, and it had all of the art. I think I might have told you that last episode or something, but it was so cool because I was reading that and I was like, no. And then I'm looking at the print and I was like, wait.
Yeah.
That actually could be true.
Mm-hmm. And it just seems so real. And like, you can look up the Last Supper and like see what he's pointing to. It's very interesting.
So weird.
So then, they were married, but after Christ's crucifixion, Mary Magdalene instead absconded to France with one or more of their children and found a home in the local Jewish community. And then by the 5th century, a member of Jesus and Mary Magdalene's sacred bloodline mated with one of the earliest kings of the first royal house of France, who themselves were descendants of ancient Israel. And members of this secret bloodline helped launch the Crusades and conquer Jerusalem. And the priory also searched for and found ancient relics such as the Ark of the Covenant, the bones of Christ, and the Holy Grail. So some people also wonder if these items are in the Vatican archives as well.
Yeah.
And one note about the Holy Grail, just about Dan Brown, because it was in the book, right, that he was saying that the Holy Grail was Mary Magdalene's womb, not an actual chalice. So that's also like a little offshoot of this theory. So I think that's really cool. I'm not a religious person, so like I might be offending everyone, but I have no issue with entertaining that idea. So
no, I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either at all.
Yeah. And then the last thing is something called the Grand Grimoire. Have you heard of that before?
Yes, but I don't know what it is.
I hadn't heard of it, and I'm really fascinated by it. So it's
Grimoires are like
also,
spell books, aren't
mhm,
they?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's a book also called The Red Dragon and the Gospel of Satan. And we know that this book is real because apparently the church has officially claimed ownership of it, but they've never let anyone see it. So,
Yeah, for good reason.
yeah,
It'd be
exactly.
like it'd be like Mein Kampf of like
Right.
Jesus's
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Ugh,
Yeah, that's a good
not a good
analogy.
vibe.
No, not good.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's fact, I guess, that it was discovered in Jerusalem in 1750 in the tomb of Solomon, and it's written in either biblical Hebrew or Aramaic. And the manuscript has not been dated to an earlier time than this, or else the church just hasn't said that. But the book itself is inscribed with the date of 1522 AD. But
Whoa.
theorists claim that it has been copied over and over, and that the original manuscript might be from the 1200s. So, um, the earliest known proof of it comes from the writings of one Honorius of Thebes, who's Honorius of Thebes. He was a pope, or he may have been a pope. Sorry,
Oh.
in Yeah, he may have been Pope Honorius the Third. So there's two people named Honorius, I guess. One's the Pope,
Oh.
and they're not sure if it's the same person.
Oh, I see.
Um, so Honorius of Thebes is believed to have written something now referred to as the Sworn Book of Honorius, from which the Grand Grimoire was derived, or which is, in fact, the Grand Grimoire itself. So
Interesting.
the theory claims that Honorius was either Satan himself or possessed by Satan
Oh,
for the purpose of writing the book.
a pope possessed by Satan?
Yeah. Interesting, right?
What a theory.
I know.
Holy shit. No wonder they don't want to share it.
Yeah, no, keep that under wraps. But
Yeah, I don't want them to share that.
no,
Don't share that. Don't
no,
let that out into
yeah,
people's hands.
yeah, no.
Just to be
So,
safe, you
yeah,
know? Like,
for
just
the best.
err on the side of caution.
Yeah, because it has a lot
Ugh.
of interesting info in it. So,
Oh,
um,
God.
it contains instructions for how to summon Satan at any time, at any
Oh,
place on Earth.
oh,
Um,
perfect.
yeah, for various insidious intentions, it says. Um, let's see, a great deal of so called copies of the grimoire are in circulation around the world, but none of these, this theory claims, contains the true words of the actual grimoire. So, theorists claim that the original Grand Grimoire is itself supernatural in that it permanently resists burning, it cannot be cut, pierced, penetrated, torn, or in any other way damaged or destroyed. It is the only book with the knowledge of how to summon Satan with a precise ritual to be performed. And in addition to this, it can summon any number of named demons, including Pazuzu from The Exorcist, Beelzebub, all of them. And being either written, yeah, it was either written by Satan himself or by someone who was possessed by Satan. It details proof of various supernatural miracles of the Bible, including the precise locations of biblical relics, and it even contains Satan's personal sketches of the faces of Judas Iscariot and Jesus Christ. So,
Satan was a doodler. What
I
can I
know.
say? It's like,
I just gotta write
I
this
thought you were gonna
down.
say like for some reason I thought you were gonna say like the personal home address of Satan.
This is his exact location, his
You want to give him
geotag.
a call? We've updated it. He's like, I've updated it with myself.
Yep.
Give me a call anytime. I'll come
I
running
just got an iPhone and I'm ready.
from the new phone. Who dis is Satan? Jesus,
Yeah. So
literally
I know.
Jesus. Oh my God.
So yeah, that's the Grand Grimoire, and who knows what else is down there in those secret archives. Hopefully, a lot of cool stuff.
Well, we're gonna get into it right the fuck
Let's
now.
find out.
Before we do, I, I feel like there should be more fear around the Grand Grimoire. Maybe that's why people don't talk about it, because it's
Yeah.
like fucking scary as a concept.
Mhm.
And if it's like confirmed by the church to be real,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't love that.
No. Yeah.
Like,
That's a good
how
point.
many human beings do you think have laid their eyes on that? Or like, I wouldn't even want to touch it. I
No.
wouldn't want to look at it. I wouldn't want to touch it.
No.
I wouldn't want to be in the same room as it.
No. I agree. I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
Keep it under wraps.
keep it.
Hmm.
Keep it locked up tight, Francis.
Yes.
No one
Please.
wants to see that shit. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the Vatican Archives.
Yeah.
So they are within the Vatican, you guessed it,
Wow.
right off of Palazzo Apostolico. Don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically they're the Apostolic Archives. All dioceses actually also have archives, and it's a little bit of a misnomer that they're like secret archives, because it comes from the Latin word that means like private. So it just means like they belong to the church. They're not public
Yeah.
archives, which
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Latin word was secretum, which
Mhm.
means private.
Yeah.
They were originally designed and are still designed to house the Holy See's official paperwork, along with correspondence and other information related to the Pope. Something that's interesting is the Vatican archives, everything contained in them does not belong to the church. It belongs to the Pope. Like, as an individual, everything in the archives are his by
Yeah.
ownership.
Interesting.
So that's kind of interesting. They have documents there that date back from the 8th century, which is
Whoa.
crazy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but until 1881, not even scholars of Christianity were permitted access. So that's when Pope Leo the 13th, who was also known as an intellectual, confronted the modernization of the late 19th century, and he opened the trove to researchers. So
Mhm.
to your point, not everything is available, and there are a lot of rules around, like, once a document is there, it can't be released for at least 75 years. It can only be released early by the Pope himself. And there are like numerous known documents that are like deeply important to our historical records as a society. So, like, one of the standout items, this is from history.com. One of the standout items is a letter from Mary, Queen of Scots, who was executed after being forced to abdicate her throne and serving nearly 20 years in custody. She was finally sentenced to death for conspiring to murder Queen Elizabeth I, who was her Protestant cousin. Facing beheading, she wrote a desperate letter to Pope Sixtus V, begging for her life and slamming the, quote, heretics who would eventually kill her. The Pope did not intervene, and she was beheaded on February 8th, 1587, but they have like a photo of the letter, which is just like shared here.
Yeah.
It was the last known letter that she ever wrote before she was executed.
Wow. That's so cool.
Priceless documents, like, throughout history since, the 8th century, which is bonkers to think that they had stuff so far back. They hold the minutes of the trials against the Knights Templar, also known as the, I actually don't know how it's pronounced, Chinon parchment. Anyway, it's the size of a dining room table, and it documents the trials of the Roman Catholic military order for things like blasphemous behavior and heresy during the Crusades. Anyway, just like really interesting history about the actual documents that are there. And then we know that there are still documents that are sealed, and there probably will always be documents that are
Mhm.
sealed. This doesn't talk anything at all about the percentage of how much is open or how much is not. But it is private. I mean, it's like you don't like it's not public archives. They're not
Yeah.
just accessible by anyone. Um, during the like surge of interest in the Catholic Church and potential conspiracies following Dan Brown's trilogy, they actually opened the archival rooms to journalists to tour,
Mhm.
which is kind of interesting. Back in whenever this was, like 2010. It was the first time that had ever happened. And they have opened it for like big specific events that are like important to the church's history and things like that. So there are, of course, secret documents, sealed documents that are secret in terms of just like we don't know exactly what they say.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm going to dig into some of these. So I alluded to one before, but there are records of the trial of literally a dead pope who was
Mhm.
exhumed by his successor, who was accusing him of having like usurped his like throne, even though that's
Mhm.
not how the papacy works. But
Yeah.
anyway, and then he died after the trial, and then his successor died, and then I think one more died. So there were like four popes who died in the span of
Yeah.
2 months, and it
Whoa.
all followed this like really eerie trial where this guy is like
Mm.
berating a dead guy, like a dead body
Yeah.
dressed up, seated.
Yeah.
And the people who were like record takers at this time were like, he's gone mad. Like he's
Mhm.
absolutely lost it,
Yeah.
which I think you kind of have to in order to do that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Mhm. Wow.
um, the archives themselves, this is just like an eerie fact, are about 38 meters below ground.
Mhm.
So it's kind of weird. You're just like in this like deep, deep
Yeah.
basement.
Mhm.
Um,
Creepy.
there are a handful of things that I'll start with the Illuminati because this is kind of the most brief. Some people believe that despite their dissolution in the medieval times, as you refer to,
Mhm.
the Illuminati has solely built itself up with its members placed in some of the most powerful positions across the world. One such powerful office is the Vatican, where many of its prominent members are believed to be part of the Illuminati. So it probably, if that's true, it probably isn't as supernatural as it sounds. It's
Yeah.
more about powerful people controlling the
Mhm.
world. Let me say that
Yeah.
again. Powerful men
Yeah.
controlling our society and the world.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's actually like necessarily that far off, whether they're a
Yeah.
part of a group that's labeled or not.
Mhm.
That's just kind
That's
of
the way it
true.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Rumors, of course, of extraterrestrial life. I almost said existential. It's always
Yeah.
existential.
Mhm.
Um, Rumors suggest that the Vatican holds proof of the existence of extraterrestrial life in the form of extraterrestrial skulls. It's
Whoa.
believed the Vatican may have like physical bodily
Yeah.
evidence of
Whoa.
aliens. Some sources say the archives contain proof that the Pope is conspiring with extraterrestrial beings. This one gets a little out there
Mhm.
to implant everyone on Earth with computer chips,
Oh,
which
yeah.
seems highly
Mhm.
unlikely.
Yeah.
Um,
Highly.
I'm just gonna like go out on a limb here and say I probably am thinking Pope Francis is a bit of a Luddite, so I don't think he's
Yeah.
really on the like computer chip game
Yeah.
yet,
Uh-huh.
but you never know.
We don't know.
That said, the Vatican has repeatedly and throughout history said it's okay and like we'll call it Catholic to
Mhm.
believe in aliens, like, to
Yeah.
believe that they exist, to believe
Crazy.
that they have or could make contact with humans,
Mhm.
which is a little bit out of character because they just the existence of aliens doesn't fundamentally like negate the existence of Jesus or God or any of those things, but it's a little bit like they don't actually jive fully either because
Mhm.
Jesus and God are so specific to earth,
Yeah.
shepherds of the earth and all of
Mhm.
that. So it just is kind of like, So it's interesting that they say that. Um, And within the alien existence evidence, there are details that aliens assisted the ancient Sumerians in creating the wheel, developing irrigation systems, creating the organization of time, counting minutes, seconds, things like that, as well as allegedly shared the knowledge of nuclear power in those ancient times. And that is
Whoa.
the Anunnaki connection.
Okay.
So allegedly, they were the aliens who shared all of that information.
That knowledge. Yeah.
So you already spoke about that, but just an interesting one.
Very.
And then, of course, there are the three secrets of Fatima. So before I get into that, there is a theory that the Bible, which contains, the Bible we know contains 66 chapters, which kind of a weird number if you think about it, like Sign of the Beast and all of that, but okay. The Bible may have originally contained something more like 80 chapters, I guess 14 of which are hidden and sealed by the Vatican. Allegedly, the Vatican took the chapters out in 1615, and some include very mystical titles. And I'm not talking like there are mystical mystical kind of sects of every religion, including Catholicism, the idea of angels and demons. It's all kind of mystical. Same with Judaism. There's Kabbalah, who I think Noah told me Madonna was a practitioner of Kabbalah, but like there's mysticism in every religion. Obviously, we believe in divinity, but this is like next level. Some examples: the Book of Giants, the story of Bel, Bel, and the dragon, the Apocalypse of Abraham. Like these are stories that include obviously dragons, giants, sirens, mermaids, like totally supernatural things that doesn't necessarily make them real because they're in the Bible, even during that time, but it's just like a whole other side to Catholicism and Christianity that just is like ignored if this is true.
Right. Oh, cool.
Yeah. But I think the most interesting of all of them are the Three Secrets of Fatima. So, this came from the Vatican Tickets site and also a Junie Bee on TikTok who talks a ton about Dan Brown, like I said, and a bunch of like Vatican related conspiracies beyond what I'm talking about today. But this one is really interesting. So the controversial third secret of Fatima, and I'm going to get to some of the background, but it's believed to be a secret document hidden within the Vatican archives. In 1917, 3 children from Portugal, Fatima, Portugal, received prophecies. They allegedly saw the Virgin Mary, and she gave each child a prophecy. One of these prophecies was actually witnessed by thousands of people. So there is like historical evidence that there was an event that happened with these 3 children in Portugal. The supposed suppression of this third secret fueled rumors that its contents were regarding a nuclear holocaust, natural disaster, or something along those lines. The release of the contents of this secret in 2000 didn't do much to quell speculation. So let me back up a little bit. There were 3 children, like I said, each given a secret. Their names are Lucia, Francisco, and I don't know if it's Jacinta or Jacinta, Jacinta. They were said to have seen the Virgin Mary, and she bestowed upon them each a secret. And they kept them secret for a long time until Lucia Jesus dos Santos, at the age of 93, she was also a cloistered nun at this time, decided to share the secrets on behalf of all 3 children, since I think she was the last living one. So she describes in this 62-line letter from, I guess, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, which I don't know if that was like her convent or what it was, but that was like the official place that the letter was published from. The first child was given a vision of hell, like very detailed, suffering, hell, fire, all of that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Second child was shown what ended up being basically World War I and World War II predictions.
Whoa.
Before they happened, because this was 1917. So World War II allegedly wasn't going to happen according to the prophecy. Like the prophecies weren't super straightforward. I think the hell one was, but the other two weren't.
Mhm.
There was a great war, and it was said that if humans didn't appease God in their handling of the war, that a second war would come very quickly after, and
Yeah.
it would be like exponentially times the suffering.
Yeah. Oh my God. And it happened. Yeah.
And it happened. And so obviously didn't appease God during
Yeah.
the First World War, if this is to be believed.
Mhm.
There's a lot of detail included that lined up really well with what instigated World War One, what happened between World War One and World War Two, the timing of the world wars. Like it was just really weird that there was all alignment.
Yeah.
She only shared the third secret at the request directly of the Pope. So she wrote it in a letter for the Pope's eyes only and said, do not open it to the Pope. Do not open it until after 1960. So it's the most controversial of them all because it remained the most secret for such a
Yeah.
long time. And then it was released. The stupid thing.
Okay, at least
I'm
we
gonna take this off.
know.
We know what it is. I can
Mhm.
do some other ones
Aw,
to prove I'm not
cute.
haunted. Yeah. Um, so it was released in 2000, but it was basically a premonition of what was to come in the 20th and 21st centuries. And like I said, they kind of get like increasingly vague. So
Yeah.
the third one is like the least clear, maybe because it was the farthest in the future. But anyway, so it was said that the 20th century would be the lead up to this like mass persecution of Christians that would eventually bring about the apocalypse.
Wow.
So it says in the 21st century, the persecution is supposed to begin where people in like armor would show up and just start slaughtering Christians, like
Wow.
just slaughtering people. And it says Christians, but it kind of makes me think like people who are believers of God, like
Mhm.
a monotheistic
Yeah.
God, because I don't know that delineation just doesn't make a ton of sense to me in terms of like apocalyptic terms, but
Mhm. Yeah.
what do I know? They'd be in like full battle gear, would start just killing people, and this obviously wouldn't appease God, and
Mhm.
so he would trigger the beginning of the end of times.
Whoa. Oh my God.
So hopefully that's not true.
Yeah. That's supposed to
But it's
happen
just
in the 21st century. Ooh.
yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Okay.
not great. It's not
No.
great.
No, that's not good news
So,
for us.
not the best news for us. No, 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 it's not. So yeah, that
Whoa.
I think is like the most interesting of them.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to end sharing something I found on Reddit because usually I feel like our episodes are filled with Reddit content, and this
Yeah.
one was just really interesting
Yeah.
because it fits really nicely into this like God is not happy kind of theme.
Mhm.
So this is from a user, Lewdiz, Lewdiz, and this was from 6 years ago.
Okay.
And they actually posted it in the paranormal subreddit, which is kind of
Oh.
interesting,
Mhm.
probably because any like Catholic one would have been like, you're
Get
banned from
out.
this group.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, but they title it The Vatican, a shared experience. So he says, I'll start off by saying I'm not religious in any shape or form. I don't believe in God, Jesus, or a higher power. But after this, I'm thinking maybe I should.
Ooh.
My story happened a few years ago, sometime in 2010. Myself and my now wife went on a trip to Rome and spent a few days seeing the sights, getting drunk, and eating amazing food. Part of the Rome experience includes Vatican City. As neither of us are religious, it wasn't very high on the list, but we did want to see the Catholic opulence and the Sistine Chapel.
Mhm.
We made our way over to the city, and that's when the crowds began to get bigger and bigger. Tourists, coach trips, cameras everywhere. We were standing in the main square, and the queue to get into St. Peter's was huge. So we were debating whether it was worth going in or just cutting our losses and hitting a bar. Suddenly, out of nowhere, this guy appears. He was tanned beyond belief, probably in his 40s, leathery looking skin, curly gray hair, bare feet, and dressed like he'd just walked out of Mecca. To say he
Wow.
looked well traveled would be an understatement. He stood close to us, observing his surroundings, and both myself and my wife instantly felt calm and at ease. A
Whoa.
complete contradiction to how you would normally feel if something abnormal approaches you. It was almost as if the crowds parted around us. The noise turned into a low hum, and as this happened, he turned and spoke to us. I've been all over the world, and this place is Babylon. He gestured to the queue of people and the tourists glued to their cameras. He had an accent, but his English was impeccable. We were both taken aback and nodded our heads, as it was exactly how I was feeling at that moment.
Hmm.
And then he said, "Just look at it," pointing to St. Peter's, and touched both of us on our arms. We turned to look, and when we turned back, he'd vanished, seemingly into thin air.
Whoa.
Like, it gives me chills. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really bizarre.
Yeah.
The hum disappeared and the noise of the crowds returned. Immediately, I felt like I'd snapped out of it and my logical head returned to me. We both scanned the crowd, but we couldn't see him anywhere. There was nobody within 10 feet of us when he had approached, and there's no way he could have crossed 10 feet of clear ground between us looking at St. Peter's and turning back.
Yeah.
We couldn't make any sense of it. It wasn't until later when we talked about it that we realized we had felt the exact same feelings and had the very same experience.
Hmm.
We both felt at ease and at one with the world, and he seemed to speak our thoughts, which is a weird thing to say, and the noise from the crowd had filtered out whilst we were in his presence. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we met Jesus or a saint or God or whatever. But that day, something happened, and we both had exactly the same experience, which for me adds to the proof of something otherworldly. I
Yeah.
don't know what it was, but I'm happy it happened to us. And it's a story I like to tell, even though I get a few weird looks sometimes. So, in and of itself, it's really interesting.
Hmm.
And then people ask some like clarifying questions in the comments. And I thought his like reaction to them was really interesting. So, someone asked, "Can you please elaborate on the bit about I've been all over the world and this place is Babylon?"
Yeah.
He said, "In what sense did you find the Vatican to be like Babylon?" He said, "It was around the whole tourist thing, as if he couldn't believe so many people were there as a tourist destination. It felt to me as if he was disgusted by religion as a business and the opulence of
Oh.
Vatican City. I've been a couple times and I feel the same. It feels like a way of generating large sums of money. The city and churches are covered in gold and other precious metals."
Hmm.
So it's just really interesting. Um, yeah. So
Yeah. Wow. That's cool.
I don't know what to think about that.
No. What a
But
interesting sensation to have too, especially in a chaotic place like that. To
totally.
feel.
I mean, everyone knows that sensation. Even
Mhm.
if you like crowds, you have that kind of
Yeah.
like
Uh-huh.
kind of suffocated feeling a
Yep.
little bit. And you're just like, ugh, like the
Yeah.
people around you are kind of just annoying
Mhm.
just by existing, which is like unfair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. The thing he reiterates in the comments too is like, it was as if he was putting our exact feelings in that moment
Yeah.
into words.
Right.
Just and he seemed like not of this time. Like
Mhm.
being
Yeah.
barefoot in Vatican City. Like,
Yeah.
are you trying to get a staph infection? That's not a good vibe.
Yeah.
And then to just like poof, like he was
Yeah.
just gone.
Right.
And people of course were like, pickpockets disappear into crowds all the time. And what he reiterated was like, well, nothing was stolen.
Mhm.
And he must have been like Usain Bolt if he was
Right.
going to be that fast. We like looked at St. Peter and looked back to him like,
Yeah.
who is this guy? And he
Yeah.
was gone. And he had been touching them. So he
Yeah.
was close enough to touch them and then
Mhm.
bolted 10 feet in
Yeah.
less than a second.
Right.
So
Mm.
it's really weird. So
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
There are a bunch of people in the comments who talk about like their kind of weird paranormal, maybe religious experiences. I mean,
Mhm.
this guy clearly is like, I'm still not religious, but like
Yeah.
this was just a crazy thing that happened. So I
Mhm.
don't know what to think about it, but it gave me chills. So I wanted
Yeah.
to share it.
Same. I like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I like it too. And I mean, if there is a God, I would hope he's disappointed in capitalism.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it sucks.
Uh-huh.
People die because of
Yeah,
capitalism.
that's true.
Like, it's not. it's not great.
Yeah.
It's probably not what he wanted for us.
Right. There's probably a lot going on that he or they or whatever wouldn't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
So interesting.
Wow.
Well,
Cool.
that's all we got, folks. We will be back next week with some more spooky stories. I'm trying to
Mhm.
remember because we were debating between two topics for next week. What was
Yeah.
the other one?
I was just trying to think about that too. I can't remember.
Oh, the glitch in the matrix
Oh.
one. I
Mhm.
think we wanted to do another. There's so many good ones.
A
Oh, I'm excited for
classic.
that.
Yeah.
That's gonna be good.
Mhm.
It's gonna
Okay.
be good.
Can't wait.
Amazing. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening. You know the drill. You can follow us on socials at Girls Gone Spooky. Email us with your scary stories at girlsgonespooky@gmail.com.
Mhm.
And otherwise, stay spooky.
Stay spooky. Bye.